Because if they're so unsure, they'll just be like, okay, like I guess,
Especially if it's unsolicited, because it's usually unsolicited because there's a situation
That's
happening
true.
and that person already probably doesn't feel very confident in their parenting abilities at that time, and then somebody's here telling them that what they're doing is wrong.
Assalamu alaikum. This is season 2 of Moonlit Conversations with Hearts, Minds, and Families. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about bad parenting advice. I think that over the years, we've all been given bad parenting advice. I have forgotten a lot of the bad parenting advice that I've been given. I was trying to think of some of them. And then I even asked my husband, and he's like, I don't remember. I just ignore it. But I did think of a few things. I hope you guys thought of some too.
I got some from other people, so I cheated.
Good. Okay, I think that when you first become a parent, you're just very unsure. Most people are very unsure about um, what they need to do and what is okay, and then the societal norms kind of change, which makes it very hard for you if you're a new parent. I felt that way definitely when I was working when I had my first, and I worked night shift for a while, and I felt like the place that I worked at didn't want to give me day shift because I wore a hijab. But then when I got pregnant, I told them, it's either you give me day shift or I'm leaving here because I'm not going to work nights and have to take care of a kid. So they eventually gave me day shift. And I didn't really know everybody that was on day shift. Like I kind of knew them from like getting report and stuff from them. But then everybody knew that I had a kid, and then everybody would give me like all this advice, and I was always bombarded. The question that I got asked all the time was, when are you gonna give him a sibling? Oh, it's not good to just have one child. And I just so annoyed. Like, let
Yeah.
me enjoy my child, please.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of just offering advice to new parents, unsolicited, is annoying in and of itself. Like they're dealing with so many things. So the one piece of advice I give to everybody now is as soon as I find out somebody's pregnant or having a baby, I'm like, listen, the only piece of advice I would like to offer you is to not take advice from anybody. Is to
Exactly.
everything that people tell you, just accept it with a grain of salt and then do your own research. So take it, you can listen to it if you'd like to, but that's fine, but don't just accept it to be true, and don't let it get to you. Just good or bad, whatever it might be, just listen to it and then do your own research. And now going forward, my advice is going to include take classes. Take classes. There are so many incredible
Yeah.
classes out there for you to take. Like, take advantage, because the thing is that generations before us all just kind of relied on that advice, and it's terrible. Things like people were turning in hit his hands when he hits other children to deter him, um, you know put them in a timeout when they're doing things you don't want them to do, or in other ways too, like hold back love from them when they're not doing what you don't want them to do. Don't hold them too much because they're going to be spoiled, or they're just manipulating you when they cry. Like, so many things that makes mothers second guess their own mother's intuition, and
Right.
that makes parenting so much harder when you just can't even trust yourself and trust your instincts.
Exactly.
I mean, Iram and Shahnila, do you guys offer advice to people, you think? No.
I was like, no, because she wants them to suffer on their own, right?
That's your problem. I don't know.
Uh, I don't I don't offer advice because I learned this early on that people don't receive advice well. At least I keep reminding myself when I used to get advice, how I used to feel, and I was really not happy when I would receive advice. Do this, do that. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing? And I do give advice. I give advice to my sister, who never takes my advice. So alhamdulillah, it cancels out. So but that's the only person. Otherwise, to other mothers, or when I see them like getting very anxious in public gatherings, the only thing I say is I start complimenting their child, and I start complimenting them. And the only reason I do this is to relax them. Yep. That's the only thing that I do. Otherwise, I don't do anything else. I
Yeah.
don't say do this or do that. Yeah, I learned.
And that's the idea, right? Just kind of giving them confidence. That's why I offer them that piece of advice too. Like, please just trust yourself. Like if whatever you're doing doesn't feel right, don't do it. Just, look into it more and try to figure out what it is and why your intuition is kicking in that way. Like, really kind of pay attention to you and your baby and what's best for you too. Like, beyond that, just don't worry about it.
With me, it was a little bit different because I did a lot of the research and I wanted everybody's advice. I was like, I want your advice. I would grab people and tell me like, so what advice do you have? And I know that I didn't give them a chance to give me unsolicited advice because it was all solicited. And I was just like, I want everybody to tell me what they think. And my baby shower even had a book that it went around and it said, all the advice that you want, just give it all to me. I want everybody's advice. And so then I can decipher my own self, like, okay,
Yeah.
I want to do this. I don't want to do this. I feel comfortable with this. I don't feel comfortable with this. And I think that all advice, it has a place, but it's how it's done. When you make the other person feel like, oh, you're going to suck if you don't do this. I think it's how it's given. So,
And two, who's receiving it also, because not everybody is quite so strong or confident, to be able to hear the advice and say, no, I don't want it. Because if they're so unsure, they'll just be like, okay, like, I guess.
Especially if it's unsolicited, because it's usually unsolicited because there's a situation happening.
That's true.
And that person already probably doesn't feel very confident in their parenting abilities at that time. And then somebody's here telling them that what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think even if you think you're doing something that's right, like, my son was having separation anxiety and someone's like, just let him cry. He'll get over it. He'll see that you won't come. Or eventually he'll stop crying. So right. I was just like, okay, but that just doesn't feel right to me, until somebody else said something different. Right. But I think, and also the other thing was that, let him, like they just want your attention. So just ignore them. So if they do something, just ignore them. And it's like, well, why would I ignore them?
Right.
Right. They label a lot of behaviors attention seeking, but it's like, you're their parent. Like, who else are they going to seek attention from? And if they go seeking attention from other people, you're going to, tell them, no, that's not okay. But who are they supposed to get attention from then?
And it all is rooted from the idea that children are manipulative, which they're not, like they'll have needs and they want their needs to be met. And so they do what they can to get their needs met, but it doesn't make them manipulative. It's just, if you're not giving them the attention they want, they're going to try to find ways to get the attention. The whole perception of kids and how they do things is really kind of the source of all the bad parenting advice. Cause it's like, don't let your children get you, like they're trying to get you. Don't let them trick you. Don't let them do things. And it's like, they're just children just trying to do what they do,
Right.
It's like them against us.
Yeah. Like they had this secret meeting while all the babies before they were born. Right. And they're like, yeah, this is how we're going to get mom and dad.
We're going to make them miserable. And that's how people approach parenting to new parents. Yeah. Like, the other thing was, I noticed when I was pregnant, it's like before you get pregnant, everyone's like, oh, when are you going to have the baby? When are you going to have the baby? You should have babies. And as soon as you're pregnant, I'm like, oh, this is terrible, right? Oh my God, kids are so awful. Like they keep you up all night. Oh my goodness. They cry all the time. They do this, and everything is so negative. And which is the same also, by the way, for like when you're getting married, like, oh my gosh, marriage is this, like, why? Why are you doing this? How does this do any good for anybody?
Yeah, I agree.
Because somebody else had even said that someone told them, like, don't worry about it. Kids aren't even going to remember how you treat them.
Yes, they are.
Now we know all about the brain functioning and the connectivity and the emotional resilience, and where is all of that coming from. And then we have messed up parents. Coming
And
back to
then
their
they
own
realize it in the
childhood.
teenage years, and then it's kind of at that point the kid is like, no, like I've gone through 15 years of feeling like you don't love me. I don't want to even have anything to do with you now.
Right. And then actually, going back to what we had said before too, someone had said, she's like, the problem was too much advice. I couldn't trust my own instincts. So that's what, going back to what we were saying before, she's like, it was just a whirlwind of information, and she felt more lost because she's like, I didn't know what to hold on to and what to let go. And then someone else said kids should have fear of their parents.
Oh my
That's a good
goodness,
one.
yes.
That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Why do you think, Shahnila, that that's a
people
good
say
one?
that? I mean, even a couple of years ago, someone was like, you know what, kids nowadays, they're just not, they don't have any fear for their parents anymore. And I was just like, why would you want them to fear them?
Right.
Like when you fear somebody, what do?
Yeah.
What did you do when you feared your parents? It's like you lie to them, you go behind
You
their
hide
back.
from them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When you're scared of something, you hide from it. It's kind of as simple as that.
Which is such an ironic thing, because they want that those group of people want their kids to fear them, which just makes the kids more manipulative. And then it's just like fulfilling a prophecy that you made this the way it is. You made your child manipulative. You taught them the ways to be manipulative, and then you're like, oh yeah, look, I told you that kids are manipulative. But it's, are they though?
Right.
But you know what? I think what they really mean is that they want kids to respect them. Yeah. That's what they really mean.
Their version of respect
is that you cannot force someone to respect you.
Right.
You can't, that's something that you have to earn.
Yep.
And did you see, Shahnila, when I had posted that in the group, like how people were responding to it? I was talking to Mariam about it because the way that I had worded it was kind of harsh. And at that moment, I was like, I don't know, I was in a mood. Like, I just felt like putting it up. I was like, I just wanted to see what people would respond. But people were so upset about that because I had said, I'm like, if you're having to constantly remind your kids to respect you, hey, respect me, I'm your parent, respect me. Either you don't understand respect or you haven't earned it. And I stand by it. But it was just funny because people were like so against it that I can dish it, but I can't take it. I'm like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't have put that up.
That's okay. You know what? I think there's some things that are hard truths.
It is.
You have to face.
And that's kind of what I wanted. That's kind of what I was going for. But it's, once I did it, I was like, oh, like people were not happy about it. Because like I said, when you have kids or before you have kids, you have all these ideas of what that relationship is going to be like. And culturally, especially, fear is a big part of that. You imagine, and it's because when you're little and your parents have this control over you, it's like you eventually think, oh, when I'm older, I get to do this to my kids,
right.
And then you get into that position where you're hoping that I say jump, you say how high kind of a situation. And that's just not the way it is.
That's true. I never even thought of it that way. That's interesting because my dad was very controlling, and I like for a long time I'm like, oh, I can't wait to have my own kids, but I never made that connection that like it was because I wanted to transfer that need for control onto somebody like weaker, I guess, than I am.
I mean, that's the way that it is with anything, right? Like kids who are bullied at home, they take that on and then they release it somewhere else. I say that to the kids all the time, like if you're in physical danger, you do what you got to do to get out of that physical danger. But if somebody's just kind of rude, if somebody's mean, like it's coming from somewhere, right? It was at some point somebody passed that along to them. Now they're holding on to it and they want to get rid of it. So they're going to try to pass it along to somebody else. And that's kind of how we look at that. And that's the truth of it. When somebody feels bad, they're holding on to a bad feeling and they're going to be looking for some place to release it. So whether you're a parent or a kid, it's going to happen somewhere, someplace.
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we tie it all to Islam. We tie it all to culture or religion. And we say that that is how it is supposed to be observed. And the reason that people got upset is because that's the idea of respect, fear. And subhanAllah, we're so ajib. We're so ajib. We talk about everything opposite of what we do. Like, for example, Prophet ﷺ was so kind, and he was so patient, and he was this and he was that. What are we thinking when we're talking about that? Like, really, what am I thinking? And if I look back at my my early years of parenthood, it was a lot of frustration and anger. And I mean, I had very easy pregnancies, mashallah, tabarakallah. And every time I got pregnant, and right after delivery, I was like, okay, fine, let's get pregnant again. Let's have another baby because it was fun. I don't know, but but the because alhamdulillah, I was blessed to enjoy easy pregnancies. I guess that's why I was never, of the idea like the whole frustration. Now that I sit and I think about it, and I was talking to all three of you in our WhatsApp group, I said that I used to feel like a crazy woman. How can I love my children so much and then be so extremely mm, distant and harsh and yelling at them? I mean, I even remember that I'm yelling. I can't see my face yelling, but I can see the horror on my child's face, the eyes, the crying, and all of that. And my heart would not feel any mercy. I am ashamed to admit that now that Iram and Safiya is putting herself as a parent coach, mashallah, tabarakallah. but, but where did that heartlessness come from? And my mom used to say to me, my mom, because she raised us, right? She was a single parent. She was like, I never raised you like this. I did not do this to you. And I'm like, you did something somewhere that I don't remember because I cannot argue with you at this point, but this is coming from somewhere. But I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, now I know, but at that point, I did not know why I was so heartless. And I was studying Quran. So I'm not even pointing at others. I'm telling you from my own story.
Right.
I'm reading Quran. I'm studying tafsir of Quran. I'm doing hours and hours of Quran study. And when I look at my kids, I like snap like this woman, like go all claws out and ugh. And I cannot connect that what am I studying and what am I behaving
Right.
like. There's no connection. There's such a big disconnect.
One time somebody gave me an analogy of like, if you squeeze a lemon, what's going to come out? Is it going to be apple juice? No, it's going to be lemon juice. So when whatever we let out of ourselves, it's something that's inside of us that's coming out. It doesn't have it. Maybe it's not related. It has nothing to do with the kids. Maybe it's just something in your mind or something from the past, something lingering that had to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And just so happens to come out like that. So that's the thing, is that I feel like we all have that. And when we get parenting advice, sometimes those things trigger that thing that needs to come out of us.
Yeah.
And it just gets released like that in a negative way.
Yeah, especially like Iram was saying in the WhatsApp chat before we got on, that when she felt this way, that people would give her advice to just be more patient. But it's like, what is that? Like, I'm already not feeling patient. How do this is not helping at all. You're just like pointing at the wounds that I have. It's not helping me at all.
Yeah, it's like you're sick, don't be sick.
Just don't be sick.
Right.
Just don't be sad. Just
Problem solved.
solved.
And that's the thing too, is parenting advice is very superficial.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're not in their home, you don't really know what's going on. And just like anything else, like the parents' history makes a difference. What was their childhood like? What is their support system like? What stress do they have on their plate right now? There's so many layers to being a parent and what can be affecting their day-to-day parenting. Then when people offer advice, that's literally what it sounds like. Oh, okay, just don't be that way anymore.
Right.
Just fix it. It'll be fine. Just don't do that. It's easy. And like it's very superficial to me.
It is very, yeah. One of the things that I have written down here is when I was pregnant with the twins, I would hear, oh, well, Yassine, that's my oldest, Yassine needs to learn how to sleep by other people's houses now. And I'm like, why? Why? He's not even 2 years old yet. He'll be 2 years old when the twins are born. Why does he need to learn how to sleep at other people's houses? Why is this an important thing? It's these little things that that other people think are important, and then they make you feel like, should I be thinking about this? Is this something that's actually important? And I know this seems like a little small thing, but like there are other things that people give you advice on, and it's not even something that's on your radar at all. And sometimes it is helpful to talk to people about things, but when they give you advice in the way of like, why aren't you doing this? Like, this is something that needs to happen. Your kid is going to be deficient in some way if you don't do this one thing for them, and it just makes you feel even more inadequate as a parent.
One bad advice, and I regret it. Like, why did I even listen to it? It was like my youngest, she turned 2, and everybody started saying, she should stop uh, using bottle. She should stop using bottle. She should just stop using bottle. She never drank milk again until today. She's 10 now.
Wow.
She did not drink milk. I mean, it was a battle giving her milkshakes and putting chocolate in the milk or putting banana in the milk. Right? She doesn't drink milkshakes. She doesn't drink milk. She's just like, and I don't know what happened. I was like, maybe I should have just let her drink milk in the bottle for some more time. I don't know. Why did I cut off her milk?
Right. And then it makes
And
you feel guilty because, I mean, you don't know if she was going to have an aversion to milk anyway as she became older. But now you just wonder, like, was it my fault that I did this?
And going back to what you were saying too, Mariam, there's a lot, again, like a cultural thing of, is she a good baby? Like, isn't that the first thing
Oh
people
my
say? She goes to
God.
everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Why is that an
Yes.
important thing? Why is that the first thing people say? A baby's not
Exactly.
supposed to want to go to everybody.
Right.
It is literally their survival mechanism to not go to other people. To them,
Right.
that's a threat. And to just say, like, oh, yeah, like to make that such a priority. Like, if you have a kid that naturally goes to people, whatever, without a problem, that's fine. That's one thing. But people literally will associate that with, oh, yeah, I don't know, she's such a weird kid. Like, she doesn't go to anybody. She's too
I
attached to her
know.
mom. She doesn't like to. It's like that's totally natural. It's such a
Exactly.
weird association.
I was going to say, so the baby, from the time the baby is born, the baby should be well mannered. That's
Yes.
the highlight.
Yeah.
The baby should be well mannered.
When most adults aren't.
Right.
Like, I think Hina had said on here, she's like, parents want to scare their kids into obedience. So going back to the
Yeah.
whole fear thing, and that's exactly what that is.
So true.
Because it's so much easier, right? It's so much easier.
easier.
But it's kind of like, okay, then why have kids? Like, why not just get a cat?
Yeah,
You know?
get a cat.
Then you
Get a
can do
dog.
whatever you want. You
Stop.
don't
Yeah.
have to sacrifice.
Exactly.
You know, you don't have to do anything. You can go out whenever you want, do whatever you want. You know,
You really want to see an animal not obey somebody, get a cat. But you can practice. You can
can.
definitely practice with a cat, but they do their own thing.
Yeah.
I had a call today, and so Mondays and Wednesdays are my free consultation calls, right? So from 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time up until 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm on calls with people all around. What is the theme of those calls? My child does not listen to me.
Yes.
yes.
I
That's
say,
number
what's the age of your child?
3.
2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, if the child and I mean, at any point, why is the child not listening to you? Well, I don't know. You tell me. That's why I'm calling you. My child is not listening to me.
Aram, look through the glass and see in their house.
And I
Because
wish we could do that as coaches. I wish you could just go and spend the day with the family, like Super Nanny.
Super
used to
Nanny.
do, but I'm not a fan of Super Nanny. But like how she used to go into their
Right.
house and like spend the day with them. She'd be like, hey, and like record them and see, like,
Yeah.
you see here.
Yeah.
I'd totally love to do that.
Yeah, it would be so fun.
After COVID.
And so much easier, right? Because people call, and of course, they strategically leave things out, or they genuinely,
Mhm.
honestly forget, and they don't know
don't
that one
realize.
thing has to do with the other. Like they have literally no clue. And so it takes a lot of probing and a lot of making them look back and reflection to be able to kind of weave things together and say, hey, this thing over here, even though it may not seem like it, is the cause of this thing over here. So now we have to kind of try to find a better path to get from here to there. But like, it can take a long time, and we don't always have that time in our coaching sessions to rearrange their entire life,
There's always a but. I do this, but the child does that. I do that, but the child does that. And I understand, like given my own history, I understand the impatience, the deficiencies in other areas of our emotional cups not being filled, which is basically then coming out towards the child. And there are many factors. I don't blame the parents to
No.
think that the child is not listening to me. If I say that, how did I turn my parenting? I haven't totally turned my parenting. I still yell at them, sometimes more than others. But the only thing that I started to see was, and that started with homeschooling. Actually, homeschooling helped me become a better parent because I could see that they're not. I mean, they just do what they're told to do. They always listen. It's us who are never satisfied.
Yeah.
Like they do listen, but we don't take into account those 5 times they listen and those 3 times that these poor miserable bichare miskin souls did not listen. We just become so aggressive about it.
And the moods that we have too, because I know at certain times it doesn't matter what the kids do, I'm perfectly fine with it. And then other times I'm like, guys, I'm not feeling it today. I'm going to stick in my headphones so that what you guys are doing is not bothering me, because I don't want to yell at you guys and you guys are just being kids. But like before, like a few years ago, I was not aware of my own feelings about how I was feeling in that day. And then everything that they did would just irritate me. And then I hear this from other parents too that are like, oh, my kid, I'm not feeling good today. And my kid just wants to act a fool today. And I'm like, but I don't think that they're acting a fool specifically today. I think they're just acting regular and you're not feeling well. So it's not being well received what they're doing. And so like the expectations are just different.
Yeah, I had said that the other day too, and like on Instagram, that's what I was like, the same exact thing can warrant a different response from you based on your mood. That's what's going to happen. It has nothing to do. So it's really not a kid's fault, because yesterday when they screamed and you were in a good mood and you were fine, you didn't even notice. Like you were just kind of doing your own thing. Today you are not in a good mood, so they scream and you're like, oh my God, you're so loud, be quiet. And that's sending like mixed signals. And then how are they supposed to know what to do? Right. They don't know what to do. They're just doing what they always do. Your response is different, and that's the real issue. And and not even that that's an issue, because we're human and we're going to have different moods, but the issue for the kids is they don't know what they're doing.
And it just seems inconsistent.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things that are just not age appropriate, and we have the expectation, just like make them sit, make sure make them sit and do their work.
With the Zoom era too, that's a big thing.
It's like, and it's like, well, that's the age, they're not supposed to sit.
And I heard that a lot during the beginning of the pandemic, that like, oh, my kid is not sitting and their kid is like 5 years old. And I'm like, my 9-year-old is probably not going to sit the entire day in front of the computer. I'll let you know that. So I think your 5-year-old is fine, is normal.
I asked this last week on Friday when I had this interview with Dr. Ross. I asked him about the ADHD question. I said, why is like every second child diagnosed with ADHD? Why is this like? And is this, is there a hidden agenda about it? Basically, that was what I was trying to. And he said, well, and his answer was very good. He said, because the pressure that we have put on the children to sit in one place and to do work, and the demands that we have put on them, is the reason for increased ADHD.
Oh, yeah.
Who was that? Who said that?
Dr. Ross Green. Yeah. The Explosive Child author and other books. So he admitted it, and he says, I'm not against medication, but I don't like to give medication. However, this is one of the reasons we demand too much from our kids.
And then also it makes the kid look like first of all, the expectations are too high, but then the way that they cope with it is by distracting themselves, is by doing all these other things that make it seem so much deeper. The problem becomes so exasperated by their coping mechanisms for not wanting to be here and trying to release that creative frustration and that backup of creativity and imagination and energy and all of that. And it looks like there's something wrong with my kid.
And you know what? We're not supposed to be perfect parents, so we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so they're taking in our toxicity, let's just say, and the way they release it, which is natural, and subhanallah, it's by being active and not sitting. So when they're playing, when they're bouncing off the wall, they're taking everything out. That's their natural way to take everything out. And imagine now you can't take everything out. So you're sitting there. And it's like when we kind of go away from the natural way that we're supposed to be, because there's always there's a wisdom in everything. When we force something else on it, then that's when the whole system messes up.
Yeah, it's really true. I'm just thinking about like my twins when I do school with them and how much they move and fidget. And one of the twins is like, I always say, like, if he went to traditional school, that he would be the class clown because he's always making people laugh. Feel like my husband will be like in the other room and just start cracking up over things that he's doing while he's supposed to be learning. But it's true, like the expectation that we have that they will just sit is just unnatural.
But I think it's even like I remember my grandma. There was a bunch of us cousins, the little cousins, and they were like, "No, tell them to sit down and play." Like they almost couldn't handle that. I don't know if it was because they were inside the house, and back home maybe all the kids would be, it'd be just an open house. And now it's everything is enclosed, and so they're afraid that they're gonna get hurt. If they were outside, they probably wouldn't even have known what they're doing, right? They're running around outside.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But the toys, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. So I don't understand why that was even back then, like sit down and play.
Put the toys away, sit down and play. Don't shout, don't yell, don't make too much noise, don't laugh too loud. Don't laugh too loud.
I know. I know.
Be invisible. Literally, just be invisible.
right.
Speak when spoken to. Just be in the background. And the opposite of the true nature of a child is what you're asking them to do. And so then, of course, they're not going to listen. And of course, it's going to be hard. And of course, you're going to be frustrated because the expectations are just unreasonable because it's not in their nature.
Yeah. And then to bring it back to what our topic is, and then you end up feeling very frustrated, and then you maybe go and try to vent to somebody, and then they're giving you advice then just makes you feel even worse than when you first came to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about the subcontinental culture. If you listen to our parents or our grandparents, what is the first thing that they said? They said, yeah, we used to have fun. Times were very simple, and we used to climb trees, and we had spaces, and we had greenery, and we used to play outdoors a lot. But we were very obedient children. We used to listen.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you keep hearing. I mean,
means obey, basically.
Obey. We were obeying. We were always obeying. I'm like, give me proof. Yalla. Okay, give me proof. There is no proof. There's no iPhone, iPad, camera, YouTube, Snapchat. There's no proof. I'm not buying it. You cannot be that obedient.
And all the pictures look the same. All the pictures look the same.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, were you allowed not to be? Were you allowed to even speak your mind? No, we could not.
Right.
We had to. We were so scared that we knew what we had to do, and we could get away with it, we couldn't.
Yeah.
So in front of our parents or the elders, we acted a certain way. That's what they say.
Which is just teaching your child to be two-faced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to like just be respectful in front of elderly people, or people that would want a different kind of respect.
Yeah.
And to be manipulative and be like, oh, well, I can't do this because I'm going to get in trouble, or I can't do this or they're going to kick me out.
There's a story in that book, what is it called? Nonviolent Communication.
Mm-hmm.
In that book, by Rosenberg, is that his name, the author? So he mentioned a story about this boy whose grandfather had passed away, but he was just remembering his grandfather and said that every week when I would go, he would ask me for a cup of tea and I would give it to him. And I just did it. And the way he asked me was so harsh. I just hated doing that, but I just did it. And I wish it was different so I could really want to make a cup of tea for him and give it in a way that, where I really wanted to. So he was just saying that even though I gave him the cup of tea, my intentions weren't, out of like love or anything.
Right.
I did because I had to out of fear.
Yeah.
And the thing is that then we learn as Muslims that our actions, our intentions really matter, right? Our actions are by intentions. And if our intention is to like really not listen, we're just only being respectful because we don't want to get hit. We don't want to be punished. So it just changes everything. Like our whole intentions, they weren't really that pure.
Yeah, and that kind of goes toward that whole reward and punishment thing that you and Seema had last week or the week before, where you guys were talking about reward and punishment. And it goes toward that, like it alters your intention, and it alters your intention as an adult too, that your motivation is different. It's not, you're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart, and you can think that you are as an adult, but deep down, like those childhood experiences, they change you as a person. And then as an adult, you always subconsciously will feel like, what am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
Like if I do this, what is that person going to do to me? How is their relationship, my relationship with them, going to improve by me helping them? And that will judge whether or not you do just a kindness, ibadah.
Right. And for that intrinsic reward too, I always remember this because when I was a kid, my whole family, we have so much respect for my grandmother. Like if anybody's in town, she's top of the list for who we go see. Like she is truly the focal point of like my dad's side of the family. We do everything revolving around her. If anybody gets like a new gift, somebody will call her and like show her the gift. And if the kids are doing anything in a certain room, they'll bring her from the other room to sit amongst the children. Like really, she's the focal point of the family. But I remember when I was little and she would come and she would be in a wheelchair. And my dad would always, in front of everybody, he would say, "Go give her a kiss." And it used to infuriate me because I'm like, I was already going to do it. And now it looks like I'm doing it because you told me to do it. And now like, what's even the point? And it really changed the whole thing. Cause I would always give her a hug and a kiss when she walked in the door, but it would be so frustrating because he would say it in front of everybody, like, "Go give her a kiss. Your daddy's here. Go hug her, go kiss her." And I'm like, stop it. Like, I just want to do it on my own, because there's intrinsic value there. And as parents, when we are the ones taking over all the time, we chip away at it. We chip away at their ability to just do things because it feels good, because it feels like the right thing to do.
So two things come to my mind. We couldn't say that I was already going to do it. I don't know if you said it or not, Seema.
When I got older, I started to say it.
But our kids can say it today. I mean, they're younger, they can say it today. So my question to the audience is this: are we good parents because our kids feel safe to say what they're feeling? Or are we bad parents because we have given them the freedom to say whatever they feel like saying and not listening to us? You see?
I think that you have to look at what your long-term goal is with your children. Because if your goal is to just have a child to be like, "Oh, look at how great my child is. My child is a doctor and they're a lawyer," then I guess you don't want them to talk back. You just want them to be like little robots. But I think we and like our generation, or rather the people that we associate with from our generation, we want more than that. We want meaningful relationships with them as adults, and we're not going to get that by blocking them off from any meaningfulness for the significant years of their life. And we're spending that time with them. It's not like we're not even there.
And I think too, when you set the foundation for that positive relationship and those positive interactions, then instead of, if they're frustrated, then we can resolve it, right? Because how many years later that I remember this feeling of being so frustrated and just like, God, just let me do this, versus they can feel it one time and then be like, that was really frustrating. Please don't do that to me. And then we can talk about it and then move forward. Right. And then our relationship stays strong. So that's the difference, right? So that instead of holding on to it until they're adults and continuing to feel that frustration whenever they think of that, they can kind of resolve it and move on.
Or grow up to be like Seema, where you just hate being told what to do.
Way to call me out.
Anti-authority.
Yeah, or that.
I mean, I feel that way too. Like ever since you said that, I'm like, oh my God, I do that too. Because even if my kids tell me, "Hey mom, you have to do whatever," and I'll be like, "Oh guys, I have a meeting at 5 o'clock," and they're like 4:50. They're like, "Oh mom, you have your meeting at 5 o'clock," and I'm like, "Well, now I don't want to do it." Like, tell me about it. I know what I have to do. I right. Do what you need to do.
Yeah, nobody likes to be told what to do.
Nobody
likes it.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, don't tell me what to do. I know what I got to do.
Why don't you worry about being a child, okay? Go play your game.
Right, and that took work. It all takes work, guys.
Yeah.
We do have one more bad parenting advice
Yes.
comment here. She says the other advice I got was that I needed to train my 18-month-old to not touch things like the glass knives or
Oh
dangerous
my
items. So I
God.
felt so incompetent that I couldn't keep my baby away from them because they were in the bottom cabinet.
Oh my God. That's such a ridiculous expectation of a child. I remember when I had all of my kids, I would get like the baby gates and I would just block off like entire sections of the house and I would just make that area safe for them. That way they're not just like in a little pen or anything like that. They have the entire living room and some of the kitchen and they can be right where I am and everything is safe for them. And I would leave like one cupboard open that had like the pots and pans that I didn't mind if they pulled out and they just feel more welcome. I mean, this is their home too. Why should they not feel welcome in their home?
So you just have to do what you got to do to rearrange and make it exploring friendly.
And it's not forever. It's really not forever. Like I don't think that I've ever really hidden my knives. They've just been like up higher on the counter, but I've always taught them how to use it. And my little ones, they know how to use all the different kinds of knives. And when I ask them like, "Oh, do you want to help me cook? What kind of knife do you think we should use? These are the things that we're going to cut. Which one of these knives do you think is right?" I mean, my son was cutting an apple with a steak knife tonight, and I was like, I don't have the car. If we need to go to the hospital, please don't forget to use your bear claw when you're cutting. And then he was like cutting it. And then he was like, "Oh, it's kind of wobbly. Can you cut the rest for me?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I cut it for him.
It reminded me of when people say that, don't get them used to, don't hold them.
Oh,
If you hold them, then they're gonna get used to it.
Yes.
That
was another thing that I wrote down. Yeah.
And I asked why. Because then you won't be able to cook or do other things that you're supposed to do. And I'm like, which makes sense. It's like, yeah, if I'm just holding the baby or holding the child, then how can I do everything else? And when my daughter, she went through a phase where in the evenings, she always wanted to be held. I couldn't even put her down for 1 second.
Aww.
So I remember distinctively cracking some eggs. I was making an omelet, and I hurried up and like put it in the pan, and before she woke up, because I knew that afterwards I won't be able to do it. Or I would meal prep the night before to make sure that I only could do it with one hand. I would wear a sling and just use one hand to do it.
I like that you accommodated that.
Yes.
I really like that.
Yeah. I used to wear a baby, what is it called? A baby carrier.
Yeah.
With my eldest one, and I used to do everything with the baby carrier.
I wish that I did that. Yeah, I wish that I did that. I didn't do that with my oldest, and now like I feel like his love language is quality time, and I'm like, is it quality time because I didn't spend enough quality time with him when he was a baby? Because that was the advice that I was given all the time. Like, I remember that people would visit and I would have him like in a little bouncer or something, and they're like, "Oh, good thing that you have him like that because you don't want him to get used to being held all the time."
Yeah.
And I don't know why I never questioned it. I didn't question any of it. I'm like, okay, well, this is how it's supposed to be. And he was just chilling there because he's an easygoing kid. But now I'm just like, oh, did I mess him up?
Because it sounds like one of those things that could possibly be logical. Right. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like, so that was one that I had listened to too, and I regret it so much. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back. And I tell my husband that I'm like, I want to have one more just so I could do it right this time. Like just so I could do it right. But I don't really, but I kind of do. I'm like, just because I want to do it right now, I know so much more. And like, of course, there's always more to learn. But from what I know now, like, I just want to try again.
I know.
I think that all kids will get their needs met somehow. So if it wasn't when they were younger, they'll get it now. And at least you're still there to do that.
Yeah.
To fill that need.
Shahnila always coming in with encouragement.
I know. Yeah, I love it.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
It's never too late. Yeah, it's never too late. And
we all feel like bad parents at times.
Yeah.
At times. And at times when we aren't feeling that bad, mashallah, our children do tell us our errors in parenting. They highlight them. There's a very, very funny short conversation that happened between my son and myself. It was like yesterday, the day before yesterday, SubhanAllah, he said that, I just totally lost it. If it comes back to me, I'll tell.
I was going to say that my husband started doing this when my first one was like younger. he would ask like, what can I do to be a better dad to you? And I love that. And so now me and him, like every few months, we would just like individually, when we're out with them or whatever, we'd ask them like, what can I do to be a better mom? What can I do to be a better dad? And I asked my oldest son that the other day. I went to the grocery store with him, and he's like, I don't know. I was going to say yelling because that's usually the thing. Like, I'm always like, I'm going to work on yelling, but I've been trying really hard. And he was like, I was going to say yelling, but you only yelled one time since like November. And I was like, I don't think that's true, but okay, thanks.
Alhamdulillah, I remembered what it was. It was like, Ma, I don't like you. Yeah, it was like, I don't like you. And I said, well, that's an indicator to my success as a parent. You're not supposed to like me. So he says, like, oh, so when I say I love you, you're failing? I said, no, that's also me passing. So he says, okay, so either way, you are never failing. I said, yep, that's the idea.
Oh, that is a very nice outlook. I like that.
We have any final thoughts on parenting advice?
I like Shahnila's idea of gathering all of the advice to be able to get both sides, but I think that it depends really on your personality. If that's something that's going to bring you anxiety, then I would not consider doing it. But if you are the kind of person that wants to hear like all sides of the story and needs all perspectives, then I can definitely see how that is helpful. Or even as a parent now, it's hard, I think, if your friend group doesn't have a lot of kids, then maybe like look to a parent that you admire and then ask for their advice, and that way you have some kind of advice from somebody that you respect, and that way you're not kind of going in there blindly.
And I still say just verify
personality and verify your own, but then also it depends on what you come into parenting as. Are you insecure as a person before you were a mom? Right. Are you anxious as a person before you were a mom? Are you a researcher in general before you were a mom?
Because a researcher like Shahnila would just like go and get everybody's information.
Yeah, so it just flows into your parenting, whatever your personality is, or your temperament, your weaknesses and your strengths, they all show up in your parenting. So when someone gives you bad advice, different people with different personalities are going to take it a different way. Yeah. Somebody can get really defensive, or somebody could just go ahead and do it, or somebody could look into it. So it really, really depends on how confident are you as a person.
Yeah,
I would say that my experience has said that just observe people. I mean, really, sometimes if they're not coming to you, if they're not asking you, then they don't want to ask you. And the ones who ask you, listen to them really well, because sometimes what happens is they just want affirmation to what they have already believed in. They don't want the other, they don't want to look the other way. They really don't, and they get very put off and very defensive. Why did you ask me? Why wasted my time, your time, why did you ask me? But rarely it happens that somebody is genuinely asking and say, I mean, now in our profession, as a coach now, alhamdulillah, people know that I'm coming to this person to listen to this person.
Yes.
So now it is easy. But if it's not parenting uncomplicated Iram bin Safi, if it's just Iram, then Iram just like zip.
Yeah, I like that. And taking a page out of your book, saying instead of offering advice, just offer a compliment.
Yes, I love that.
I like that. Don't even bother. Don't even give advice. Just instead hold back and offer a compliment, and maybe direct them to people that you admire, people that you like. Like if you are not a professional, if you don't have the information, there are all kinds of incredible, even like Instagram pages you can follow. There's lots of free resources that you can say, hey, if you're having trouble with this, maybe check out Iram bin Safia, Brave Muslim Parents, Love and Let Grow, like follow them, go online. Dr. Laura Markham has all kinds of great YouTube videos, and so many other people. She's just the first that came to mind, but there are free resources out there, and paid ones too, if you're willing to do that. But as a person just out in the world, just offer compliments. That's just leave it at that. I think that's good.
Yeah, I love
Compliments
that.
are kindness. Compliments are
Yes.
kindness. Just spread kindness. There's
Yeah, especially like nowadays, everybody's criticizing everybody, and that's what we need is compliments.
Yeah, for sure. Compliments, encouragement.
Hmm.
That's what parents need more than anything else.
you're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. I love.
Yeah. All right. And that wraps up our first episode of season 2 for Hearts, Minds, and Families. So be sure to follow us here on YouTube, subscribe to our page, follow us on Instagram, and leave us comments, send us suggestions, whatever you have to do. So that's all. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Like him.
Today's episode, we thought we would shift. Last season, we were okay. Today's episode,